You're listening to the Outstanding Life Podcast with your host, Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. As a motivational speaker, Johnny D impacts audiences around the world with his message of living the outstanding life. He's a best-selling author, MC, and two-time Grammy-considered artist. This podcast is a place where Johnny D can introduce you to his outstanding friends and share funny, interesting, and heart-provoking stories. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. Here comes your host, Johnny D.
Hey everybody, I'm Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. Welcome to this week's Outstanding Life Podcast. We have our good friend Walter Kuhn in the house. He is a staff photographer at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, been doing it for over 30 years. And he's also the director of education and special projects at Roberts Camera there in Indianapolis. Walt, we got you on the phone?
Oh yeah.
What is
Coming
going
loud
on?
And clear.
Good, well, man. You doing well?
Yeah, just still kind of on the high of this year's Indianapolis 500. It was a great race, a great event, and still it's amazing how many photos you can go through in today's cameras on an event like that.
I let everybody know that you're one of the staff photographers there. You've been doing it for over 30 years. How many pictures, before I get into your story, how many pictures do you think you take at the Indianapolis 500?
Well, that's today or back in the days of film, you got 36 pictures in a roll of film. And so I probably took 30 rolls of film during the race. Now, during the whole month of May, I think I shot, it was close to 60,000 images.
Wow.
And that's a little bit misleading. With these cameras with motor drive, I can shoot a camera at 120 frames a second. You can go through a lot of frames. And here again, 99% of them you're going to throw away because it's not the moment that you want. But by shooting it at 120 frames a second, you get the moment. So, and then a lot of things on either side in between. So.
That's so cool. Well, Walt, that's how I met you. I met you by being a photographer, just 3 years ago at the PRI show. Let me ask you this. What inspired you to start taking photos?
Well, Johnny, I actually worked for my high school yearbook. I worked for my college yearbook, but I never in my life thought I'd make a living at it. In 1991, I entered a photography contest. I was selling real estate at the time, and I entered a photography contest. Eagle Creek, which is the largest park inside the city limits next to Central Park in Indianapolis or in New York City, and they had a nature photography contest, and I entered 2 prints. And both of them got first place in their category, and one of them got best to show. So I came home and told my wife at the time, I said, I can't do anything but go down. And but it taught me also what I thought was a good photo, other people thought were good photos, and I could do that photo. And I've just always had a love of photography, but I never thought I'd make a living at it. And it just the stars all aligned. I took a class from the director of photography at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I didn't think he was going to teach me a lot, but I considered it a job interview, and I had a portfolio at the time, and I went and approached him and said, I'd like to shoot for you. But I said, if you want somebody to just stand inside at turn 3 doing, waiting for the big crash, I said, I don't have any interest in that. I want to try stuff that's never been done out there.
That's so cool. Let me ask you this then. Were you always around cars? Like, how did you even get a passion for cars?
Yeah, well, I was always around cars. My family used to own a auto parts chain store called Guarantee Auto. We had stores in Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and Michigan. And we used to sponsor cars. In 1976, 77, 78, 79, and 80, we sponsored cars. We sponsored Tim Richmond. We sponsored Hurley Haywood, Bob Harkey twice. My first memory is out there when I was 16. And we sponsored Bob Harkey. Bob didn't make the race, but that was the year that, I don't know if people remember, but 1976 was the year that Jim Hurtubise hopped in a car and refused to get out because the Speedway wouldn't let him qualify. And then they finally got him out, and he went running up and down the front straightaway like a madman. And I think that was part of Days of Thunder. That's where they kind of got that scene. He hops into our car, and they finally get him out, and we go out to go make a qualifying ride. This is on the 4th day of qualifying, back when they had 4 days, and literally 5:57. And then he goes running up and down the main straightaway. They call our run off. We don't qualify, but we made more publicity from that one event than we did. But I was 16 years old, standing in the pits going, this is pretty incredible. I think I want to be involved in this. So that was my first experience. And I mean, I had always gone out to the race. I'd gone out to practices and whatnot, but be actually involved in it and, be part of it. And that was my kind of first experience. It was kind of eye-opening.
When you got hired there at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Do you remember your first 500 and what was that like for you?
Oh, absolutely. I remember it. When I first started out there, I actually wasn't on the IMS photo staff. I actually started in what's called the product certification committee. I had a friend, my wife at the time worked with this other lady, and she goes, "Oh, my husband is a kind of a bigwig out there. He runs the product certification." So she got me on the committee, and 1991 was my first year. And in 1991, product certification used to certify race cars. You'd see ads after the 500 that said, Mobil Oil won the Indianapolis 500. Well, we actually pulled oil. We actually ran through viscosity. We tested it. We found some cheats, okay? But because there used to be big money, for a motor oil company to say you won the Indianapolis 500. There probably still is, but it used to be huge. And so we certified that. Well, the very first car that I ever saw, every person on the committee was given one car. My car in 1991 was Rick Mears. So, and that was his fourth win. That was the year he won his fourth. So here again, that was my first experience at the Speedway on product certification. So here again, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. When you're certifying Rick Mears' fourth car, fourth win, that was a pretty neat experience.
So the number one question that always comes up with you photographers and people out there taking photos is, what kind of equipment do you use to capture all your stunning photos?
Well, usually the latest and the greatest of the day. That's why I said, if anybody is interested, up on the second floor of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is the photo department. You can buy any photo that I've ever taken or any IMS photo person's ever taken. But I always tell people the history of photography is actually in the vault where they have all the negatives, because whatever was the greatest camera of the day was out there. Okay. And so, I use Nikons right now, but it's, they kind of all do the same. It's more how you set it up. And, you have to have kind of the latest and the greatest. You can't get away with a 20-year-old camera and a fisheye lens. It's not going to get you very far.
Is taking photos there at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and of race cars, I know that that's where you got your start and stuff like that, but do you do other types of photography? Like, do you do weddings? Do you do other types of, events?
Well, I do like seeing portraits and stuff like that. I don't really do weddings. I've never been big on weddings and dealing with mother-in-laws and things like that. And they're kind of very stressful. And the nice thing is they were on weekends. Races were on weekends, so I chose races instead. And but I do other things. And then also I teach, and teaching is a big part of it. But my company, Roberts Camera, loves that I'm out there and in the flag stand for the 500, because that when we go to teach a class, that gives me some street cred.
Talk a little bit about that, because I've always known you as the guy up in, the flag stand. I mean, that you got to be pretty special to have that one place up there, right? Because there's a whole bunch of you photographers, and everybody, 300 and some thousand people would love to be right where you are.
Yeah. I got there because I asked. Okay, I literally got there because I asked. The very first Brickyard in 1994, I had just joined the photo staff in 93. And so I didn't really have a location. Most people had, locations where they were for the race. I didn't have a location. So Ron McQueen, my boss at the Speedway, comes up to me and goes, "Where do you want to go for the Brickyard?" And I said, "How about the flag stand?" And he actually paid me what I consider to be my highest compliment I've ever been paid, because he said, "Wow, nobody's ever asked to do that," which was stunning to me. And also what I had strived to do out there. I wanted to find different stuff, different things. And I actually spent the inaugural Brickyard, a massive, huge event. And in the flag stand on that day were the two flagmen from NASCAR and me. There was no honorary starter. There was nothing. And it was an eye-opening experience when I'm looking around going, this is a massive event. People would pay thousands of dollars to be where I am right now, and I'm not paying a penny. I'm actually getting paid to do it. So that started it. And then what really made it, though, I after that, I put remotes on the starter stand, but I did other things. So I just had remote cameras on the starter stand. The next time I was really back up there was in 2011. And 2011 was the year that Dan Weldon won, and Hildebrand crashed on the very last corner of the last lap. My checkered flag shot is one of my favorites ever. The checkered flag shot, and then Dan Weldon about 15 minutes later, when he goes to kiss the bricks, after he kisses the bricks, he turns over and lays on his back and just has this moment Well, he is basically, I'm looking straight down at him. I have what I consider my finest image that I've ever taken out the Speedway. And then there was also a moment earlier in the race where the Marmon Wasp was coming down the front straightaway and blew the engine, and I've got it spewing oil. It was probably my biggest day up there. But in 2011, I was up there, and people said, he's got some very good stuff up there. We need to put him up there, all the time. So I don't spend the whole race up there. I go up there for the start. I'm there for the finish. Or if I sense, kind of like this year, that we're going to have a lot of red flags, then I'm going to head up there and make sure I'm up there for all that.
Well, you just got done talking about some of the greatest moments that you got to take photos, and that is up in the flag stand. But have you ever had a close call or dangerous situation while shooting a race?
Yeah, I died doing it, actually.
Wait, what? You died?
Yeah. I love to hear people's reactions. I died doing it. If you're ever going to have a serious trauma, a racetrack's a pretty good place to have it. It was in Phoenix in 1998. It was the final practice session. I remember going out to turn 2. I remember the session starting. My next memory is 5 hours later, waking up in the hospital, and I had been lifelined out of there. And what happened was a car crashed, and the tire came through the fence and kind of took the top of my head off. And I still have a permanent dent in the top of my head from the headset that I was wearing there. But I actually passed away, and they got me back and going, and got me to the hospital. I was actually only in the hospital 14 hours. It's an incredible story. I was only in the hospital 14 hours. I got up the next morning, and they released me because I had no concussions, no broken bones. And my cousin, who lives out in Phoenix, says, "You want to come at my house and watch the race?" And I said, "Well, God, no." I said, "I want to go out to the race." I said, I actually tried to work the race. I petitioned to work the race, and they said, "No, you just go watch it in the press box." But Johnny, I was very, 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 very lucky. I was very blessed. But it's also, I realized that. And, it could have turned out different. It didn't. I think there's a reason for it. I have a special needs son, and I really think that's, a reason for it. It makes you think about, life and how quickly it can be taken from you and how special it is. So.
Wow. And we talk about memorable moments. That's got to be, when you think of a memorable moment, you think of like the happy times. I mean, one, it is happy, right? You're with us and you're talking with us and you're alive. But man, what a scary moment.
Yeah, the only thing is, Johnny, I have no memory of it. You have as much memory of that moment as I do. I said, I remember going out there. My next memory is 5 hours later. I don't remember anything. I was awake, alert, and conscious. I was talking to him. I was completely coherent. Kind of the whole story takes about 15 minutes to tell the whole story. But 6 years after this, I actually got off the road because I have 4 kids, and I was missing some birthday parties and some soccer games and some things, and I wanted to help raise my kids. So I actually got off the road, and I opened a business in Carmel, Indiana, which is just north of Indianapolis. And I had a business partner, and my business partner's wife was 43 years old, and she was adopted. And she wanted to find out at 43 years old where she came from. So she did some research, and she found out she had a brother in Illinois and a sister in Phoenix. Remember, my accident happened in Phoenix. And she called these 2 people up at 43 years old and said, "You don't know me, but we're brother and sister." And, imagine finding out at 43 years old you have a brother and sister. And the first time she ever met them in her life was at our grand opening. And it was a very emotional, it was a very cool moment to be part of, connecting these people who didn't know they were brother and sister, And so after, a little bit into the party, I went up to the sister from Phoenix and her husband. I said, "So what do you guys do out in Phoenix?" And they said, "Oh, we just sold our business." I said, "Yeah." I said, "What was it?" He goes, "Oh, it was a helicopter evacuation emergency service." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Where did you fly to?" He said, "Well, mainly Good Samaritan Hospital," which is where I went. I started to explain the story, and he goes, "Well, I know all about this. I was the pilot."
Wow.
And it's just, it's mind-boggling. It brings, the hair on the back of my neck still up. It's just, it's a small world. And the thing is at the time, we couldn't connect those dots because she hadn't found her family. And 6 years after my accident, we were able to connect those dots. And it's a pretty amazing small world that, my business partner's newfound family, lifelined me out of my brush with death. So it's pretty neat.
That's pretty crazy. If you don't believe in God, that makes you sure think about God, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, it's just kind of funny you say that because I did have a little conversation with the guy upstairs while I was in the hospital in my bed. I said, "Listen, I have no idea what you have in mind for me. My world had changed. 30 days before, my son had been diagnosed with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. So I'm laying in the hospital bed going, what the hell is going on with my world? Okay. But I had a conversation with the guy upstairs and I said, listen, I have no idea what you have in mind for me. I have one request. Keep me around for my son. And I'm still here and my son's still here. So it's 25 years later. It's pretty amazing.
Awesome story. Well, how do you build relationships and connect with the drivers, teams, and other industry professionals in the racing world when you're out there at the racetrack? I've always wondered, there's photographers everywhere, but there are special photographers with special teams, and you connect with certain people. But how do you build those relationships with those drivers and teams?
It's just like building relationships in any business or anything in life. I often said when I did the traveling, and went to all the races, it was like a traveling circus.
Yeah.
So you would see the same people week in and week out and week in and week out. The one thing I wasn't fond of it when I was, I didn't always work for the league, but when I worked for sponsors and clients, was every year you had to reapply for a job. It was like, hey, once the season was over, it was like, hey, that's great. You did a great job. Put in a bid for next year. And so it was tough. You basically had to go searching for clients, every single year. And I enjoy working for the Speedway and not having to do that.
Right. Have you ever had a race car driver, a team, request an outrageous or fun idea for a photo shoot? And how did you bring that vision to life?
Well, I don't know if it was that outrageous of a photo shoot, but I was kind of honored 3 years ago. Ganassi called me up and wanted a group photo, a company photo with Dixon. Dixon was running his, I think it was like 300th race. And so they put his car out in the front. And the PR rep who hired me turns to me and goes, do you realize, Walt, this is the first time we've ever had a company photo? I was like, wow. That's a pretty big organization. You've never had a big thing like this with all the employees. And they're like, no. And so I was honored to take that. But I've also, I try to do different things. I'm currently right now, if anybody knows anybody, I'm trying to get a lot of the drivers are bicyclists, and I'm an avid cyclist. And I've got a special 360-degree camera that I would love to put on a driver's bicycle as they go around the speedway. A lot of them do that in the morning for workouts. And I think with a 360-degree camera, it'd be pretty cool. Yeah,
I was just going to ask you, how do you stay motivated and continue to, find your inspiration in a field that you've been working in for so long?
Johnny, if you can't find inspiration out at that place with given basically unlimited access, I need to retire. Okay. If I can't get up and get excited, I actually am already planning things for next year. My big problem now is the month of May is so short. Okay. It used to be, back when it was originally opened, it opened May 1st, regardless of what day that was. It could have been a Tuesday, and it opened, the track opened May 1st, and the race used to be run on May 31st here again, regardless of what day that was. So there was 30 days of May. Well, now there's like 8 days, and, we have so much demands as far as the shots I've got to get. There's a lot less time for creativity and trying new things. But I'm always thinking, what I try and do is I try and have 6 or 7 ideas and then see which ones will fit this year. And I have some ideas for rain. Okay, well, if we don't get rain, can't do that. But if we get rain, I got to have stuff I got to be able to do that are going to be unique and different.
Well, so you mean that you guys sit around before the month of May and actually plan the photos?
Well, I plan my own. It's not like my team, not like the staff, gives me photos. I'm thinking now of, I'm always thinking of what is a photo that nobody has done out there. That's my goal, is to try and find an angle. This actually was kind of brought home in 2007. I think it's 2007. That's when Elio won, and or one of the times he won. And the day after, we always have the photo shoot. Okay, well, the morning after, it is pouring rain. So they do the photo shoot in one of the those white huts in the back of the plaza, those pavilions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They pulled the car there. They put these fake palm trims there. They had these fluorescent lights. It was green AstroTurf. It was horrendous conditions, okay? But they had this big kind of U-shaped of photographers. Everybody's shooting pretty much the exact same thing with the exact same lens, doing the exact same thing. Well, I went behind everybody, and I got the camera on a stick, which I'm kind of known for, the camera on a stick, and put my fisheye on that and got something that was completely different than anybody else that was shooting out there. And guess what? It ran all over the place, because I try and think sometimes as an editor, okay? You're looking through photos and it's like same thing, same. Oh, wow, that's different. And that's what I want to be. I want to be that different.
You know, Walt, I mean, what a great life lesson that is, right? I mean, look outside the box. Just because you're not doing it like everybody else doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Yeah, and when I started my career out there, it was in the days of film. And I used to, if you go out there, if you go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the second floor, you can go to what are called the proof books. The proof books are all the rolls of film that we shot. They would make a contact sheet, okay? It was 5 pictures across by 7 pictures down. It was 35 pictures. They clipped the last picture, okay? Well, I considered that contact sheet my canvas, all right? And there, if you go out there, there were times where I shot one thing where I shot 35 pictures, of a race car. Each one of them is 1/35 of the race car, but when you put the contact sheet together, it's an overhead of the race car. Okay. But when people are looking through the proof books, it's like they're just seeing all these photos, and all of a sudden here was this basically one whole sheet that was one photo, and it was 1/35 with each photo. And I also did one of nothing but the driver's eyes. Okay, I got a big huge lens, and I went in, and all you see is a very close up of each driver's eyes, and it's a contact sheet. Kodak, when they had the suite out there, ended up making this Duratran of it. But I always tried to do something different and tried to use the contact sheet as a canvas.
How cool. First of all, again, it's the second floor there at the Speedway.
Yep, and anybody can go. You can also order them online, but you can go and order any photo that's ever been made out there.
I asked you just a couple minutes ago what keeps you motivated, and you went right to the track, and that keeps you motivated and inspired. But when you want to get away, you also brought this up, and you talked about the guys biking and stuff like that. But when you want to get away from the track, you want to get away from the kids, you love to go bicycling. Talk a little bit about that and how you got even into that.
Well, it really is my happy place. I got into it about 15 years ago. I was going through a divorce with my wife, and I was kind of at a crossroads, and I thought I could drink myself through my problems or exercise myself through my problems. And I fortunately took the exercise route, and became addicted to cycling. And, there were a lot of times where I had a lot of pent up emotions and, negative energies, and I'd get on a bicycle, and 2 hours later, I didn't remember all the problems I have. So, I do long distance cycling. I'm currently training for a thing called the Rain Ride, which stands for Ride Across Indiana. It's a 1-day event. It's July 15th, so it's coming up here in just over a month. And it's basically, we start on the West State Line and end up 160 miles later on the East State Line. About 1,400 people did it the last time I did it in 2019. But it's a 1-day event, and it took me 12 and a half hours last time, and that's my happy place.
Well, what was it like for you to finish that race the first time?
Well, it's actually kind of funny. The first time was the absolute best weather I've ever had. We had a tailwind, coming, and it was cloudy and overcast, and it was actually the best conditions. It was very gratifying. The one thing is 5 miles to the finish, I had a flat, which, was the hardest flat I've ever changed in my life. But I was, bound and determined. I was going to walk it home if that's what it took. But it's just gratifying. I don't really care about the time. I care about, do I get that little medal? And that little medal means more to me that, of what I've accomplished. And the last time I did it in 2019, it was the hottest day of the year. It was 107 degrees. I get home that night, and they turn on the news, and the first 3 news pieces are about, the heat and not staying and going indoors and drinking water and not exercising outside. And I was like, I didn't get that memo. It's just very gratifying to finish that and get that little medal.
And I'm trying to think of the project because, people often ask you, what's the coolest project you've ever been, associated with there at the track. But didn't you get to take pictures of all of the cars, like the history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, all the cars that race there?
Yeah, that definitely been in the top 10. I mean, I've had some pretty cool things. What I did was I spent 2.5 years photographing every car in the Hall of Fame Museum.
2.5 years project.
Well, it wasn't every day. It wasn't every day, but I built what's called a sight wall, which is a cornerless photography wall down in the basement of the museum. And if you've ever been down there, it was 5-6 years ago. There was hardly a space. It was an actual jigsaw puzzle to get every car out and get every car photographed. They've kind of emptied out a few cars down there now, but we would spend, I'd spend 8 hours a day for a couple of weeks, and then I go edit stuff, and then we come back. And then there's also another building on property. It was over 400 cars that I photographed there at the Speedway, and that was a neat project. But I also have what I consider to be the Indiana's largest photo ever made is attributed to me.
What do you mean? What happened?
Well, that was the one on the JW Marriott for the 100th running of it in 2016. They put a picture of the Borg Warner Trophy on the side of the JW Marriott. It was 30 stories big. Well, that was my photo. It was 2 acres. The photo was 2 acres big.
Well, what the heck was that like for you to walk down the street and see your photo 30 stories tall? I'm getting goosebumps for you, my friend.
Yeah, there's YouTube videos on it. It took 7 days to put it up. They put it up in 5-foot panels, but it was really, it was pretty cool. They ended up making a puzzle out of it. A company made a puzzle out of it, and then Tank McNamara actually made a Sunday comic where that decal, that photo, comes off the side of the JW Marriott and goes and flies out to the Speedway and causes an accident in the race. Okay, so that was pretty cool. How many people got a Tank McNamara comic about their photo? So and this year's credential, the credential for this year, the badges, the silver and the silver and the bronze badges was my photo based off of that. So I've had some really pretty neat experiences out there.
Well, do you ever? And I'm asking you this because, of what I get to do, and we get to do, cool things, right? But do you ever take time after 5:00, everybody's left, and you just kind of look around and see the photos that you took and what you are a part of, what you are around, and just take it in? Because sometimes I think we take it for granted how cool our jobs are.
Oh, there's not a day that I don't appreciate it. It's an honor, and I try and tell the powers that be every time I can what a privilege it is. I do. It's not usually after the race. There is about 8:30, 9:00 after the race. I have this shot that I go do of the pylon, which has they do it like the old where they have all the numbers on it. Okay, just the numbers. And in one photo, it tells me kind of the whole day because it shows everybody's place where they finished. All right. When I go to do that, the place is pretty much empty. All right. There's a couple of people. There's probably 200 people on the property at that point, but there had been 330,000 right. At that moment, I kind of rehash the day and, think the day over and everything that's happened. But I don't really look at my photos until, all the photos I shoot during the month and all the photos I shoot during the race, it takes a while to get through that and to kind of know exactly what you had. I didn't know exactly what I had this year. Do we have time? I have this year my favorite photo that I took all year long or all race long. It was when Joseph Newgarden went into the stands. All right,
yeah,
and I'm up in the flag stand, so he is literally right below me. All right. And running around, and I've got all these photos. Well, at the very end, right before he hops the fence to get back out, he stops with a fan and does a selfie, right? And puts his hands up in the air and does a selfie with his fan. And to me, it's a very cool kind of interacting with the fans, very cool race moment, all right? And it was my favorite photo of the day. Well, I sent it to my kids, showing them, to which my middle son wrote me back and says, "Dad, you realize I'm in that photo?" And I said,
Wow.
"What?" I said, "What?" And sure enough, he's in the photo. Well, the amazing thing, Johnny, is he had tickets in the fourth turn. Okay. He had seats in the fourth turn. He was actually leaving with three of his friends. They had parked down near the first turn. So they were walking from the fourth turn down to the first turn. They were kind of passing by where the start finish line is on the front straightaway. Okay. And my son turns to the other three and goes, this was like with 8 laps to go. He goes, "Guys, I have a feeling about this." He goes, "I have a feeling, just something. I think it's going to be an exciting finish. I think it's going to be a photo finish. I'm going down to the start finish line. Who's with me?" To which, dead silence. All three of his other friends go, nope, we're going back to the car. We're done. And he goes, "Guys, you're not going anywhere. The car's blocked in. We're here. Well, you're parked for hours, okay? You're not just going to go back to the car and drive home, all right?" And they said, no, we're going back. So he goes down there. He gets down there with 3 laps to go, gets down to the start finish line. A yellow shirt goes, "Oh, you can't come in here." He in typical Walt Kuhn fashion, he goes, "That's my dad up in the flag stand." The yellow shirt lets him in, okay? And he's down there in the moment. And what's really amazing is the photo that's my favorite. You actually see him on his phone, and he's recording a video. And the video, it's only an 8-second video. The video ends right when Joseph is doing it, right after Joseph does the selfie with the fan.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a really cool moment. But it also taught him a very valuable lesson, John.
And what's that?
Sometimes you just got to go for it. Okay.
It
It doesn't always work out. As I've told him, you hit a home run. You're not always going to hit a home run, but you got to swing for the fences if you want to hit a home run. And he said, you took a chance, and boy, did it work out. Because it's kind of funny. We just were looking at it yesterday. That actual photo is been used by the Speedway, and on their Facebook account, on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Facebook account, that photo has, I think it's 1,900 likes on it.
Wow.
Which is something, it was something he's never had on it. But it kind of taught him a very valuable lesson that, his friends wanted to go back to the car, and he could have easily gone back to the car, but he said, "You know what? I just got a feeling," and he went with his gut. And it definitely worked out.
If you're just now joining us, we are talking with Walt Kuhn. Walt Kuhn is a staff photographer at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the director of education and special projects at Roberts Camera. Walt, if you could photograph anywhere in the world, if I opened up my pocketbook right now and got out one of my credit cards and said, "Money is no object," if you could photograph anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Well, without question, it would be Monaco. I would love to go to Monaco. The problem is it's race weekend. It's Indianapolis 500 weekend. So you can have all the money you want, but it'd have to be a pretty special. I'd have to have, a pretty special photographer's credential to want to go and give up my flag stand at the Indianapolis 500 for Monaco. But Monaco's always been it's the pinnacle of Formula One, and I was very fortunate to photograph the Formula One races at the track for the Speedway. That was incredible being part of that. So, Formula One, I would love to do that. As far as just photography in general, I would love, here again with my cycling background, would love to do the Tour de France.
Okay.
That's always been a bucket list of mine. So those are pretty much my two. I
always said that I would do, the double. I would do the Indianapolis, 500 and then fly to Charlotte, North Carolina and interview, the Chevy drivers before that race as well. But that I could actually pull it off as long as I can get that private plane from one to the other.
Well, and you might be able to leave before the checkered flag. And unfortunately, I don't know if I could do that. But yeah,
right.
Johnny, that day, race day, I show up at 3:00 in the morning, which usually means I get up at 2:00. But I show up out at the track at 3:00 in the morning. This year, I left at 11:00 at night. What is that place like when there's nobody there? It's to me, it's magical. It's just the vibes I get out of there. It depends. It depends if it's a race weekend or like race morning. It is extra special. But even I love walking with a person that's never been there before. Even if it's not race day, just walking there and they're just blown away how big it is, how impressive it is. And, but it's kind of wild because I don't know if you've ever seen the picture. There's a picture, of, a meme out with all the stuff that will fit inside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and, Vatican City and, I think even Monaco. It's amazing what'll fit inside, the track. And so it's a massive place. So, when it's empty, it's, it's kind of wild.
Let me ask you this. What is it like? And I'm asking for me, what is it like in the wintertime in Indianapolis when it's snowing and you're at the racetrack? That's got to be kind of magical as well.
Oh yeah. Here again, anytime that it's different. I love to photograph it. I had a really cool photo shoot. You talk about some things I've gotten to do. One of the cool photo shoots I got to do was the Borg Warner Trophy and the Stanley Cup. Okay.
Oh, cool.
And it was in October. Okay. It was in October. It wasn't in May. And what it was the Chicago Blackhawks had won the Stanley Cup, and the Indy Fuel here in town, the local hockey team, is a farm club for it. So they brought the trophy in. Well, the trophy after the game stopped by the track, and it was there for 15 minutes. And video was there. So video got it for 7.5 minutes, and I got it for 7.5 minutes. And the picture I came up with was one of my favorites of all time. The Stanley Cup and the Borg Warner, two of the most iconic trophies of all of sports there on the Yard of Bricks. It was pretty special.
What do your kids think of Dad? I mean, you have such a cool job. I've always wondered, when you have such a cool job like yours, what do your kids think? Are you just Dad, or are you Dad with a cool job?
I'm Dad with a cool job. They get it. I mean, when I started out there, they didn't get it. Now they get it, and it was kind of fun. Two stories. My son had come down earlier this year and had brought some of his friends, and that's always nice. Or he wants to show his friends, show me off to his friends. But it was kind of funny. Also, I think it was 4 years ago. It was before the pandemic. My daughter, who's 24 now, so she's about 20, race morning texts me and goes, "Dad, can I come hang out with you today?" Oh,
wow. Cool.
I was like, honey, it's not take your daughter to work day, and I don't have a credential. I don't have a credential for you, but I appreciate the love. So
that's pretty cool.
But no, yeah.
Hey, if you could go back in time and photograph any famous, historical race or race car driver, who or what event would you choose and why?
Well, it would probably be something from the 60s at Indy. I would have loved to, like Jimmy Clark. And one of the things I loved about film was it really separated the professionals from the amateurs. Okay. Now with digital cameras, you can put it on auto and press a button and it's going to get it fairly close. Okay. But back in the film days, if you didn't get it right, there was no computer you can put it in, and you also didn't know, while you're shooting it, what you were getting. You didn't know until after you got the film back. And that's why the very first 500 I shot in 93 for the Speedway, you used to have to wear a double layered fire suit. You were in long underwear and then a fire suit. Okay. The very first race that I did, I lost 11 pounds. Okay. Wow. Yeah. And because I'm running all over the place. I get home that night. All right. I lay down on the bed. I cannot hardly lift my head off the pillow. Can't lift my arm. I am physically just exhausted, and my brain won't shut down because my brain is replaying the day, going, "What was my settings here? What did I do here? What did I do here?" Because I didn't have that, digital feedback that I get now, where I can take a picture and look at it and go, "Yep, I got it." Okay, or "No, I don't," and change the setting. Back then, it was, you didn't know until you got the film back.
What driver, if you could go back in time, who would you shoot?
Here again, probably Jimmy Clark. It's always been a favorite of mine. I never, got to see him race, but I back then I thought they were all studs. I mean, back then, they were.
Yeah,
they still are. They still are. Don't get me wrong. Qualifying at 230 some odd miles an hour in Indianapolis takes some bravery, but back then it was even more. But I've been around racing. I said my family had the automotive parts chain store, so I was always in cars, and we've always been around racing. So I've really never known anything but. I've always grown up in it.
Walt, I often ask the drivers, this question. Fans always want to know, and you just kind of said it just a little while ago that you are literally at the racetrack all day long. You get there at 3:30, in the morning, and you don't leave sometimes till midnight. But during the race, you're up in the flag stand and you're all over that place, I'm sure. How do you find time to go to the bathroom?
That's I've been asked that before. The nice thing is, I'm not in the flag stand the whole race because, as you know, there are no facilities up there. And I feel more for the actual flagman. I will tell you, up in the flag stand, there's not a lot of coolers with bottles of water. Okay, people aren't chugging water. So, but the nice thing is, I'm up in the flag stand usually for about the first 20 or 30 laps, depending on exactly how it plays out, whether there's a yellow or kind of how it plays out. And then I leave. And when I leave, there's 171 bathrooms on the grounds. I know this because the 2 days after Mr. Penske bought the track, he had gone through pretty much every single one of them, and he's done an incredible job renovating every single one of them. No, and then the nice thing is that about that time is usually 20, 30 laps into the race. People are watching the race, and the bathrooms are pretty open. I'm up there. I'm up in the flag stand from pre-race, which can be an hour to hour and a half before the race starts, until 20 to 30 laps after the race begins. And you just learn to not have to go to the bathroom. Don't drink a lot of water in the morning.
Walt, have you ever encountered any unusual or unexpected wildlife while taking photos, especially there at Indianapolis? And I know you've also took photos at other racetracks, but people that don't know Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they have a golf course right in the middle of the racetrack. There's plenty of wildlife there. Have you ever encountered wildlife while taking photos?
Yeah, there was a fox. I think it was last year or the year before that went running down the front straightaway. Okay. And then it hops over the fence and gets out. But yeah, there also was one year, and this was probably 4 years ago, a bird had built a nest up in the flag stand. Okay. And as you're climbing up in the flag stand, climbing the ladder up, you could see the nest there. Okay. Well, I'm sure the mother thought, oh, this is a nice peaceful spot and everything's calm and quiet. Well, then the month of May comes, okay, and then these cars start going around, and she got quite agitated. Well, race day, when you put 330,000 people there, she was really mad. I think all the birds hatched and whatnot. But yeah, it's a big place. There's a lot of animals around that place.
Walt, there's a lot of people that would love to do what you do, not even for a living, just for fun, right? Anymore with the smartphones, you can go take photos.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let me ask you this. You're the director of education and special projects at Roberts Camera, which is an incredible camera store. What advice would you give to someone just starting out? What would you tell them?
Well, to be persistent, to be, if that's your dream, go after it. That was my dream, and I went after it. But, okay, what I'll tell people is, you got to have a portfolio, because everyone and their brother wants to do what I'm doing. Okay. But very few people are going to put in the effort to actually do it. Okay. I had this lady come up to me once and goes, I want a Victory Circle credential. And I'm like, hold on a second. I don't think you quite understand. Victory Circle kind of credentials, you kind of earn it. You've been around, and you're the lead photographer for either your newspaper or for the Speedway. It's not like they just let anybody in. And she's like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, you'll never make it in this business because you're not willing to put in. As I said, I show up at 3:00 in the morning at the Speedway. I leave at 11 o'clock. They only run the race, for a small portion of that. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind that, a lot of editing, a lot of, of grunt work that people don't see. And they see me in the flag stand and think, oh, that'd be great. But are you willing to do all the other stuff that got me to a position where I could even get considered for being in the flag stand?
Well, with only about 5 minutes left of the show, there's a project that I saw that you did, and this has nothing to do with race cars. This has nothing to do with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This has nothing to do with biking, but it has everything to do with capturing the moment. And I saw on your Facebook page, you went out and took photos of an Amish community. Can you talk a little bit about what you went through because the photos are amazing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It was, I put on a lot of workshops here at Roberts. It was bar none the best workshop I've ever put on. I'm very fortunate to know a lady named Cynthia Baldoff. Cynthia has spent decades building a relationship with the Amish in Eastern Ohio. All right. And she goes over there many times a year. And she was fortunate enough to allow us to come into their community. The Amish were. And we basically embedded ourselves with them. We went to luncheons and dinners, and we went on buggy rides. We did all sorts of stuff. And, people who photograph the Amish, a lot of times what you do is you drive roads looking for stuff, looking for stuff in the fields or whatnot, or, just, a buggy passing by on the road or something like that. Well, I can't run a workshop with, let's just go drive the roads and see what we find. And Cynthia was, just instrumental in this, in getting them, because, there are several levels of Amish. They're all not the same. Everybody thinks all the Amish are the same. They're not. Okay. And there are portions of them that use cell phones and have mopeds and have, different things that we in society have. But there are also people that, we went into one person's house and they had 2 white shirts and one pair of black pants in their closet. And that was it. That was all the clothes they owned. And but it was the Amish are incredible people, and it was really neat to learn about them and just the photo opportunities we did. We took one old building, hadn't been used in 50 years, and we cleaned it out. And it was an old schoolroom. It was a one-room schoolhouse, and we ended up hiring these kids and this woman to act as the teacher, and we basically recreated the Amish one-room schoolhouse in this room, and the photos were stunning. But it's one of those things that you could never do without Cynthia Baldoff or the Amish's approval. But it was a really neat workshop.
Were you able to show those photos to them after you were done? Were you able to go back and show them what you captured?
Oh, yeah. There's the section of Amish that we were dealing with. They deal with phones. They deal with, they deal with that. So, and they're not wild about promoting it and getting their picture all over every place. But they had no problem with it, and they appreciate a good photo. But it was actually kind of wild. We'd go into some of the houses, and one of the things I often noticed was, wow, there's no big TV in the living room. We think of that. Everybody's house has a big TV in the living room. That's where you watch the sports. It's weird to walk into a house and there's no TVs whatsoever. And, I applaud that. I appreciate their lifestyle. And, it was neat getting to photograph it. We hope to do it again. COVID kind of changed it. COVID came through and just ravaged their community. And we thought about doing it this year, but we're going to try and do it hopefully next year again in June or July.
Walt, if you could you let everybody know again how they can go online to the IMS website and look at these photos and buy photos and stuff like that, like you talked about earlier in the show?
Yeah, well, it's the IMS. If you go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway website, up at the top, one of the tabs will be photos. And here again, not everything is online. They're putting a lot more stuff online. But if you go to the second floor of the Hall of Fame Museum inside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they've got everything that's ever been taken. You can buy a lot of stuff. It depends on what you want. If you want like the Victory Circle from 1997, they've got it all already made up. But if you want a special photo, they'll get it printed and then they can send it to you. But as I said, there's a portion of it that's online, but everything is in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is at the second floor. And just real quickly, it's kind of neat if you ever have the privilege of going up there. Up on the second floor is the vault where every negative they have. I think it's 5 million. It's probably even over that negatives that from all the way back to 1911. And if a fire were to happen, if there ever God forbid was a fire in the Indianapolis Museum, the door there is automated to close, and then the oxygen gets taken out of it so that those negatives will not burn under any conditions. It's a safe. It's a vault, and that's one of the most valuable things at the Speedway is all of those photos from the 1920s and 30s and 40s and 50s, and they got to protect it. But if the alarm goes off, you're told to just get out of that room. That's all you need to know is just get out of that room, and because if they they close the door, it's they're going to take the oxygen out.
Walt, have you ever had a driver come up to you and ask you to capture a special moment outside the racetrack of them or maybe their family? And what I'm thinking of, have you ever took engagement photos or hidden in a bush or, you know what I mean? For a driver.
I'm not Chris Owens. I'm not Chris Owens. I haven't hid in a bush yet, but I've done some special things for that. Scott Dixon had me do things a while back. And, I don't do as much as I used to do because I only do the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Back when I was traveling, and doing the whole circuit, I did a lot more of that because I'd see these guys every week. Now that I only do the 500 and the Grand Prix that's coming up here with the Brickyard. I don't see them as much.
Well, how can people find you on social?
A couple ways. My Instagram is Kuhn_Walter. I'm on Facebook, although it's a private Facebook, but and depending on, we can accept friends, but that's usually the easiest way to see me. I post stuff on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Mostly.
Well, a couple last questions. Black and white or color photography?
Well, both. Okay, they both have their moments. Okay, I've even done black and white that have been colorized, so part of it is color. Okay, I don't like this. Well, it's got to be this. You said black and white. Well, there's times where I like black and white. There's times where I like color. It just I appreciate black and white, and I love a good black and white. I love black and white from the 60s and 70s, but it just depends. There's times where it looks best, but there's times I love a color photograph as well.
Natural light or artificial light?
Natural light. We do a lot of studio stuff, but I always like, just what God gives us, the nature that's out there. And, a lot of times sometimes I'll add a fill flash or something like that. But as far as studio stuff versus, outside shooting race cars, out shooting race cars every single time.
Landscape or portrait photography?
Well, here again, it depends. If I'm doing headshots, definitely portrait. But whatever's going to get me the creative shot. I don't like to put limitations of I got to do it this way. As I said, the Elio Castroneves kind of taught me that do something outside the box, think outside the box, and that's what gets noticed. All right, if you do something, I always say, if I see 10 photographers standing over here doing this one photo, I'm going over here. I'm going to shoot the same thing, but I'm going to shoot it completely different than they will. And that's kind of how I made my name out there.
Walt Kuhn, I can't thank you so much for joining me on the Outstanding Life podcast, sharing your stories with us. Thank you so much again, Walt. And I appreciate everything you do. And the next time you're at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, make sure you look up Walt Kuhn.
Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, man, have an outstanding day. Everybody, I'm Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now on TikTok at Motivational Cowboy. And don't forget, if you're looking for a motivational speaker for your next event, go to motivationalcowboy.com. We'll see you next time right here on the Outstanding Life podcast. Hey, I'm Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. Are you planning a conference, convention, meeting, assembly, or any live event that needs a guest speaker? I would love to be a part of it. For more information, visit motivationalcowboy.com. Have an outstanding day.
Thanks for listening to the Outstanding Life podcast. Follow Johnny D on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Motivational Cowboy. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, advertise, or would like to make a donation, please visit motivationalcowboy.com. And remember to have an outstanding day.